Aboard.
Thank
How
you.
are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not complaining.
Oh, you never complain, but you should have good news. You're looking forward to hearing good things.
Yes, I've got brilliant news.
Oh, now we're talking.
Yes, I've got 2 more great grandchildren. Yeah, not too bad. Not complaining.
2 more grandchildren.
Great grandchildren.
Great grandchildren. Kanainara. Where do they live?
Right. One lives just up the road in Prestwich, behind on the new property behind Tesco's.
Very nice.
And the other one lives in Mill Hill in London.
Wow, fantastic. Baruch Hashem, Simchas, Gesundheit. It's very so special.
Yeah, well, the one in Manchester had a little boy.
Beautiful.
And the one in London, a little girl.
Wow. Is everybody healthy? The mummies
Yes.
are okay?
Absolutely fine, thanks. One was born Wednesday, and the other was Thursday.
Beautiful. So they're still both born in Adar, in the month of Adar.
Yes.
Because today's Rosh Chodesh, so they're Adar babies.
Adar babies, yes.
That's a lot of simcha there.
Yes. So I'm very, very pleased.
Baruch Hashem. I'm sure that the COVID restrictions probably added a little bit of extra spice to the journey of giving birth. But it's so special when it comes and everything is okay and everybody's healthy. Baruch Hashem, it's miracles, such miracles.
Absolutely. But also today, I should have actually been going to Hull for the unveiling stone of my late brother Aleph.
And that would have been today.
But because of restrictions, I can't travel, and they're only allowed 6 people, including the minister.
Yeah. You've got to do it the right way around. It's the greatest respect to not go in a way, you know. Sometimes you go, you want to be there to show respect, but really to protect lives is even a greater mitzvah. So you're not going in order to show respect. Are they going to have an online Zoom or something?
No, not that.
So you could do an extra mitzvah in his honor, maybe like learn an extra Mishnah, Pirkei Avos, very special, yeah.
Absolutely.
The neshamas are very much in touch. They understand what's going on, and they appreciate the connection. In neshama language, they say when you talk to a 2-year-old, you have to talk 2-year-old language. But the same child, when he grows up and he's a 5 and he's a 10, he's a 20-year-old, you change how you speak to them. So when it becomes a neshama without a body, we have to learn to talk neshama language. And neshama language is things that have meaning, like learning Torah, doing a mitzvah, and they understand, and the conversation works. They're listening in, and they appreciate the closeness and their thought, very much so. So I wish you a arichas yomim, long life.
Thank you. Well, you know, my thoughts are always there.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic, very special. Let's do a little bit of a slideshow share. Yep. Let's go back here. How do I do share? Back to Zoom here. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Neville. Good morning, Jeff. Welcome aboard.
Hi there, you all right?
Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. It's a special day today. Before we blink, if you're in, sure, if you made it. But even if you didn't, it's Rosh Chodesh.
Yes, I
And
know.
Rosh Chodesh is always a very special occasion. What's special about Rosh Chodesh? So we always say that Rosh Chodesh in the Beis Hamikdash times, there would be the Musaf offering. They would bring extra karbonis. And that's why in shul we daven an extra tefillah, or at home we daven an extra tefillah of Musaf, even though it's not a Shabbos or a Yom Tov, but there's an additional Shemoneh Esrei, additional Amida. And really, part of that Amida, amazingly, includes the Karban Chatos, a sin offering that was brought. And it's not specifically because it's a Yom Tov that you bring a sin offering, but it's almost like it's a fresh start. It's a new month. When we start the year off, we get a fresh start. When we start off a new month in the Jewish calendar, it's not just a party, it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity to start a new leaf. And therefore, Rosh Chodesh is the time to start again. We've just completed the full month of Adar, a month of excitement, of joy. And we go from there straight into this month, and this month is considered the month of miracles, the month of Nisan. But not only miracles, the month of redemption. Obviously, it's the foundation when the Yiddish people became a nation in Eretz Yisrael, in Mitzrayim, leaving Egypt. But the month of Adar, of Nisan, is considered the month of Chodesh Shel Geula, the month of redemption. So it's a high time that we have good redemptions, and good things should happen in our personal life. And of course, on the global scale, in our communal life, but everybody should be able to have what they need. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the Yiddish calendar and on the Parshah. And from that, we'll go to one area in the Parshah to explore a Yiddish message. But there is a lot of things to talk about with Pesach being so close. So although it's really a Parshah here, we have to mention a little bit some of the general reminders, because this year, Pesach is different with the restrictions still in place, but also it's different because it's follow-on from Shabbos. And when it's a follow-on from Shabbos, there's a couple of things that we do special and we do different. Not very complicated, but if we don't think of it, then we can get caught off by surprise and caught off guard. So the very first thing we have to remember differently is that the sale of chametz does not go into effect on Shabbos, because the sale of chametz goes into effect when you can do a sale. Shabbos you can't buy and sell, and therefore the sale of effect goes into effect on Friday, 2 days before Pesach, a day and a half before Pesach. So we have to make sure that we plan accordingly, that anything that we own, which is chametz, is put away into those closets that are going to be the cupboards that are sold, and we make sure that we have no chametz left except for the chametz that we need on Shabbos Friday night and Shabbos morning. We have to have a meal on Shabbos, which includes eating bread, either unleavened or leavened bread, but because we can't eat matzah, certainly not in the 24 hours, according to some opinions from the whole month before Pesach, so then we certainly can't be eating matzah in the morning of Pesach. And that's why we have, in order to have bread, we have to eat chametz bread. And to make that allowable, we have to eat the chametz bread before the cutoff time, which is just after 10 in the morning. So shuls will be starting very early, and we'll be home in time to be able to have a meal of chametz before that cutoff time. So we want to plan ahead, try and find the bread that doesn't make a lot of crumbs, maybe pita bread. Some people like to use because it doesn't make a lot of crumbs and it's a complete bread, it's not sliced. And then you make your challah, your lechem mishnah, your regular meal over that, and eat it in a place that's not going to leave crumbs over for Pesach. And by the time 10 o'clock comes, it's all entirely consumed, and any leftover breadcrumbs or anything like that are disposed of, not in the bin. Even in the outside bin doesn't count. One has to either throw it out into the birds outdoors or put it down the toilet, and that way you don't have any left. That's two of the main things, the sale of the chametz and the eating of the su'udah, the meal on Shabbos morning. In addition to that, when it comes to Motzei Shabbos, the first Seder night takes place after Shabbos is over, and we cannot prepare anything for the Seder during Shabbos. One of those interesting setups. So let's say you wanted to set the table, or you wanted to prepare a dish, and you have all Shabbos afternoon, you've davened away in the morning, you finished your meal by whatever time early, and it's lunchtime already, you've got hours ahead, you've had a shlof, you've woken up, you want to just get the Seder ready. We can't do preparations on Shabbos for after Shabbos, even though it's a Yom Tov. Shabbos is too holy to be wasted or to be used towards something that's not on Shabbos. Even it's like the Seder, it's really important. It doesn't help, and one has to be careful and remember not to set the table, not to move things around, and not to prepare. It's called Mechen, Mishabbos L'chol, or from Shabbos to a different day is not allowed on Shabbos. So what happens? Shabbos goes out at 7:30, I think it's 7:28, if I'm not mistaken, check the calendar. And then after that is when we have to start quickly preparing the Seder. Those of us go to shul, able to go to shul, should go to shul, and we come back and we launch the Seder. Having the Seder before that time, some people tend to have the Seder at 7 o'clock. It's not a good idea. Seder has to start after nightfall. And for those people who are and find themselves sitting down for a Seder before that time, they should at least make sure to have the 4 cups of wine and the matzah after that time. So if they're going to make Kiddush, they should make sure they're having Kiddush after that time, because the Seder has to be at night, and night only starts when it's night. You can't bring night early. Even though sometimes people can daven Mariv early, you can't start the Seder early. Another interesting thing is the lighting of the candles. It's going to be extra relevant this year. Lighting of the candles when it's Yom Tov, straight from Shabbos. We need to have a candle lit from before Shabbos or a fire lit from before Shabbos so that we don't light a new flame on Yom Tov. So lighting the candle before Yom Tov is important and before Shabbos, and have like a 2-day candle, or maybe better, even a 3-day candle. But it should last over till Sunday evening, from Friday until Sunday evening, so that Motzei Shabbos for first night Seder, and again from second night Seder on Sunday night, we'll have a flame with which we can use to light the candles for Yom Tov, and that has to be after nightfall. And very interesting, this year we're going to not only use the candles for the sake of candles, but into the Kiddush, there's an amalgamation almost, where we fit a bit of Havdalah for the end of Shabbos into the Kiddush of the first night Seder. So there's a few extra words, an extra paragraph that we include, and we say a bracha over the fire of the candles that were lit for Yom Tov, and we have in mind that this is the fire for the Havdalah candle. So we'll be using those candles double, but obviously we're making sure not to start a new flame, and if someone doesn't have a flame, and they can't borrow from the neighbors for whatever reason, it's better to not have the candles than to start a new flame by striking a match or something similar. Because striking a match or something similar is forbidden. And lighting a candles is a positive thing to do, providing we can do it within the permissible way. Okay, so that's another interesting difference. And then there's one more difference this year, and that is that Motzei Shabbos, during our Seder, depending on how long you go, you'll reach the point of where we change from GMT to British summertime. And that means that the first Seder night is after 7:30. The second Seder night is at 8:30 because the clocks have changed. It's the same time, but we change it differently on the clocks. If you have a clock that doesn't change, don't change it on Shabbos or Yom Tov because that's forbidden. But if you have an automated clock that changes by itself, a radio control clock, you can see the clock on the wall. And in the new time, it'll be 8:30 the second night. And that's another interesting, curious, fascinating idea where the two Seder nights are an hour apart in starting time. If a person, again, finds himself on second night in a place where they're starting the Seder early, it's ideal to have your 4 cups. Not only ideal, it's necessary to have your 4 cups of wine after the 8:30 starting mark. And if someone happened to make Kiddush earlier, you ask your local Orthodox competent practicing rabbi how to work it out, but probably you'll have to have an additional cup somehow. I'm not sure how you'll fit it because the cups have to be drunk after the 8:30 mark. And also the matzah should certainly be eaten after that. And by doing that, you're fulfilling all the mitzvahs and making it work. Any questions before we go in? Any observations? We're going to jump into what else is happening this week. But the Seder and the Pesach differences are very important. It's worth remembering. And if you have any question anytime, I'm happy to take messages, calls. And Be'ez Hashem will make it a very special Yom Tov of freedom. We have here also today, Rosh Chodesh, we said is a special time. And Rosh Chodesh in general is a special time, but in the month of Nisan, it's very special. If someone has a dream, the Gemara tells us in the first tract in Maseches Brachos, someone has a dream, and in the middle of the dream, they see the word spelled out Nisan. They can be sure that Hashem will look after them and provide miracles for them. Nisei Nisim. If someone sees a dream with just one letter Nun in it, then the Gemara tells us you should expect miracles to happen for you. If you see the word Nisan, which starts with a Nun and ends with a Nun, Nisei Nisim, miracles are coming your way, good things are happening. And here we are in the month of Nisan where we can expect and we hope and pray for good things. And I think everybody could do with a booster. Wherever we're up to in life, we can always use an upgrade and an override. And it's not because we want to rely on miracles, because of course we're told in Chazal tell us, our sages teach us that we shouldn't rely on miracles. We should work Hashem's wonderful world to its fullest, not try and break the rules that Hashem has created. But nevertheless, now and again, Hashem gives us a little booster, a little upgrade, a little hello call, and there Hashem gives us a little miracle. The things work out. And Malcolm was saying, wish him Mazel Tov for his 2, or Einaklach, his 2 great-grandchildren, where birth is a miracle, a tremendous miracle, the creation of a new life. Hashem should give everybody the koyach, the life, the gesund, the health to be able to enjoy all the good miracles. And with Hashem's help, only good things will happen. It happens to be on the Chabad calendar. Tomorrow, tonight and tomorrow is another big day. It's the yahrzeit of the 5th Chabad Rebbe, the founder of the Chabad Yeshiva system, the Lubavitch Yeshiva system. He was a mighty, mighty man in the sense that he stood up to a lot of opposition. He had a lot of hardships in himself, but he was such a caring but clear leader. Last week we spoke much about leadership, Rosham Deber of Lubavitch, and he was the founder of the Yeshivas Temchei Tmimim, who was the father of the previous Rebbe. Some amazing things that he did. One of the fascinating things that he did was he reminded, or he revealed what would have been probably a mystical secret up until his day, where on the last day of Pesach, right at the end of Pesach, you might have joined one in the past, but you have a Mashiach Suda. It's almost like a Shalosh Shudas, but it's not Shabbos. And we have an extra meal for Mashiach. It was Rabbi Rosham Deber Lubavitch who explained the mystical teachings of drinking 4 cups at that sitting. So not just having matzah and sitting around, which is the Baal Shem Tov already taught, but the concept of having the 4 cups, not for celebrating the miracles of the past, but celebrating the miracles of the future. That was Rosham Deber Lubavitch's revelation, one of the big things that he taught us. And already now we can start planning where we think we might be on the Sunday at the end of Pesach, late in the afternoon. If we're in shul, the better, but even from at home, to plan into the schedule, to have a special sitting, and to make it exciting, fun, uplifting at Mashiach Suda, especially with tonight and tomorrow being his yahrzeit. Yeah, it's Chosei Yagim Aleinu. So here we have a little bit what's going on in the Jewish calendar this week, with it being Rosh Chodesh, getting ready for Pesach, and with it being Beis Nisan, there's lots of good things coming. Let's talk about what's happening in the Parshah. Personally, this Parshah means a lot to me because it's my Bar Mitzvah Parshah. So whenever I get to Parshas Vayikra, it has an extra buzz. But in the schooling system, Parshas Vayikra often, to many teachers, becomes a challenge, especially when the younger classes. Why would you say Parshas Vayikra is a challenge for teachers? Because the way some people see it, it's technical or boring. Instead of having the first book of the Torah, Bereshis, we have all the stories of Adam and Noach and Avraham and the Shvatim, and there's so much stories. And even in the book of Shemais, where you have the people down in Egypt and they're slaves and they're getting free and they're coming, and there's the 10 plagues and there's the 10 Aseres HaDibros, there's loads going on. All of a sudden now, Vayikra, we're learning halachas, laws, but not just laws that are technical, laws that almost we don't know about, because they're laws of korbanos, offerings in the Beis Hamikdash. And unfortunately, we don't have a Beis Hamikdash in which we can bring these korbanos. So a lot of the laws that we're learning, the halachas, are A, very technical, and B, they're not even applicable in the here and now. And that creates a challenge for many a teacher. So some teachers use it as an opportunity to learn a little bit about nature. What's a cow? What's a sheep? What's a goat? What's a ram? All the different things. But of course, that's not just the point of this week's Parsha. What we're learning really is how Hashem, Creator, who is so much greater than any creation, is calling to us, humans, creations, and telling us that there's a recipe, there's a program which we can get part of and become close to Him. And more than that, even if things have gone wrong and the disconnect has happened, we don't feel close, there's a way back. It's built into the system that when we don't feel close to Hashem, there are things that we can do to be able to feel close to Hashem again. And in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, it was literally a physical procedure. You went and you bought an animal, you walked up, you traveled all the way to Yerushalayim, Beis Hamikdash, and there were different offerings that you could bring. But if you read the Parashah, even including those offerings, there was an emotional journey with that. It wasn't just a technical, physical journey, it was an emotional journey. And this week's Parashah opens up where Hashem calls Moshe into the tent of meeting, the Oil Moed, which was the equivalent of the Beis Hamikdash. And he tells him, tell the people, these are the ways that you can reach out. You want to get close? It works. This is what you can do. This is how we can do it. And he teaches him the oil offering, the burnt offering. Teaches him the minchas, the meal offerings, and it was flour, and there's 5 different types of meal offerings. It takes quite a few lines to go through the differences of what a person could have and a person could afford and a person had available, and whatever the person was able to do, they would bring. And then they went on from there to talk about the shalomim offering. Interesting, Rashi explains what's a shalomim offering, a peace offering. Why is it called a peace offering? So for starters, because it's not brought because of a sin, it's brought because a person wants to make peace. But more importantly, when a person brought a peace offering, part of it went on the altar. The non-edible parts of the animal went on the mizbeach, but the meat part of it had to be eaten by the offerer, the gift bringer. But a whole animal, and the time frame was very short. It almost forced the meal offerer, the carbon offerer, to bring friends together and create a party because he had a very short space of time to finish eating the entire animal. So the only way to make it work was to have friends and family over to create a joint meal. And that in itself created friendship. It was a peace offering. There's another interesting element in it, that the peace offering also had a portion that went to the Kohanim, also had a portion that went on the altar on the Mizbeach to Hashem, and also had a portion that went to the people. And everybody joined together to make this offering into a journey where people come together with Hashem and with the Vayikra and Beis Hamikdash and with friends. And in that sense, it was very fitting name to be calling it the carbon shlomim. And that was brought as and when a person felt ready. You felt like you wanted to do something extra, bring a peace offering. Gesundheit, it's a great thing to do. Not only that, in Yom Tov, there was loads of peace offerings going on. So much so that a person had to bring a peace offering, and a carbon chagiga. The chagiga was a type of peace offering. Every Yom Tov, there would be loads of this type of getting together and peace offerings to be able to make Yom Tov not just a time where we think about ourselves and how we're enjoying the Yom Tov, but bringing family together. Amazingly, the Pesach offering was a type of, a spin-off, a kind of shalomim. Very interesting, which is why a person then designated X amount of cash towards a Pesach offering, and in the end he gets a deal, and the animal he buys was worth less. The money he designated is already designated and therefore can't be used for something else. You could use it for an additional shlomim offering, an additional family or group barbecue for a peace offering, which would be allowed. The end of the parasha talks about the sin offerings for a regular person, the king, who because he's in a leadership position, had a higher responsibility, so that if the king realizes he made a mistake and has to bring a sin offering, it was much more extreme. Same thing with the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. The Kohen Gadol, if he realizes he made a mistake, it's not enough just to bring a regular sin offering. You have to bring an extra uber sin offering. And if the entire community, led by the Sanhedrin, led by the Beis Din, had made a wrong decision, then there was an additional sin offering that was brought again on a higher level. And then there's the asham offering, which is considered a guilt offering, certain things that if a person did and didn't realize and it was a mistake, so then it wasn't just a sin offering, it was an asham offering, which was different. So the parish is full of different ways that if we disconnect, we can reconnect. If we're feeling connected, but want to strengthen that connection, we can do certain things to make it work. And of course, we know that although we don't have a temple, a house for Hashem in its original form, davening takes its place, which is why amongst Hasidim, amongst the Hasidic dynasties of all sorts, davening was always one of the greatest things you could do. So instead of having an ending time for davening, so you start davening by 9:30 in the Shabbos morning, and it has to end by X hour. Otherwise, people are getting umming and ahhing. How come it's taking so long? By the Hasidic circles, the starting time is important. The ending time is not so important, because davening really is, and it's supposed to be, an emotional journey. An emotional journey that the Kabbalah compares to the ladder of Jacob's dream. Yaakov had a dream of a ladder The ladder started on earth and it stretched up and up and up to heaven. And that's what davening is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a journey where we start off from here and now, where we're very normal people and we're involved in whatever we're involved in. And davening is a time where we take time out. Time out. We're reaching upwards. And that's the journey of davening. And in a sense, just like the shlomim, you can invite friends to join along. You can spend time in a minyan. But the point is to journey closer to Hashem. Journey closer to Hashem. And in a sense, Parshas Vayikra gives us that tremendous oomph. That's the Parshah in a nutshell. Let's talk about one area of the Parshah, and we'll try and learn a relevant practical lesson from this week's Parshah, especially for today's day and age, because Torah is ever relevant, and especially when it comes to a time where we're getting ready for Pesach, which comes with its own set of stresses or distractions, and also it comes with a time where it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to be able to make big things happen. Before we start the lesson, if anyone has any questions on this week or last week or on the Parshah or in general, it's a good thing to do. Unmute yourself, please, at any time, and please ask. Vayikra. If nobody else is asking, I'm going to ask you a question. The question I'm going to ask you is, do people prefer to be the same as everybody else? Or do people prefer to be different? Would you like to be just like everybody else? Or would you like to stand out and be considered different?
Levi, it depends what age you are.
Go on, give me some more words. Help me understand what you're saying.
When you're younger,
yes,
you want to be like other people because
yes,
you want to be accepted with your peer pressures. And obviously, as you get experience more older, you want to be more individual because your development and experience tells you that.
Amazing answer. I like that. So it depends how old you are. Very good. Malcolm, were you going to say something?
Yes, of course. I'm an individual, and I like to do my own thing. Yes, I have to do the right things. So because people will always notice what you're doing, but at least I want to be my own person.
Okay, so you want to be unique. You don't want to be the same as everyone else.
Yes. Can I bring in?
Go on, Jeff.
I think hopefully as you get older, you get less insecure. When you're younger, probably it's just quite normal for children and teenagers and very young adults. They want to be like their fellow friends. Like Malcolm, I like to be an individual, but an individual which is in respect to other people, and they respect me. This is something which is you'll find out as you get older. A few of us are sort of reaching a more of a senior age group. That's how it is. You want to become more individual, and you will challenge things. I will challenge yourself, or I'll challenge my own Rob on certain things. Where in my early 20s and 30s, I'll be stum. I wouldn't say a word, but it has to be done in respect, and it can't be done in a way that's, I've got challenges at the moment with work, major challenges with a guy that I work for who I've got to be able to challenge him in a way that he can understand it. If he doesn't, then, in certain ways that we operate professionally, morally, whatever you like. And morally is so important. That's big in my way of thinking.
Amazing.
And if you see something wrong. But anyway, I've said my bit this morning.
Hold on one second. Would you say it's a compliment to tell somebody you're not normal?
Depends. It depends how you refer is not normal, because in today's society, anything goes.
But you're saying if people like to be unique, is the opposite of unique normal?
Well, yeah, well, we're getting into interesting territory now, because if you take two sides of our community, you take the secular community, which I live in, and Neville and a few of us all involved in this, and Malcolm, we're all more sort of individualized but you move into other circles of a lot of communities, including other religions, there is a fixed set the way to behave. Like, for example, I would go into certain schools. I know that in the old days, my son Gideon, I should have to wear a white shirt. I said, no, I'm going to wear a coloured shirt just to annoy them. You know what I mean? I wasn't going to walk in with jeans on a Friday night, but I'll be individual.
Yeah, there are shuls that you're supposed to wear jeans in. I think in Eretz Yisrael, in Israel, a lot of the shuls, that's the normal dress code. But without getting carried away into the details, I think the point we're making is quite clear. Everybody kind of agrees that we want to be stand out. Go on, Neville.
Actually, a lot of the things we do religiously are conventional because hundreds of years ago, some of the traditions we do now weren't there. And therefore, we all are acting based on rabbinical direction to do certain norms, certain traditions that weren't there a few hundred years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. Our religion and our the way we act in that religion, the way we act at shul, what songs we do, what prayers we do, a lot of it is developed. It's not necessarily it was written 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years, that's it. Yeah. So we're all being conventional, doing what our basic United Synagogue type direction is giving us, and all basically doing the same on a certainly, let's say, most days, and certainly on a Shabbos.
Yeah,
one could say.
Classic example for that you brought up, Neville, is L'Chadodi. L'Chadodi was written by a Kabbalist 400 years ago. So everybody, L'Chadodi is a basic Yiddishkeit. Yes, from 400 years ago. You're absolutely right. But I don't know if we're only doing it because we want to fit in. Perhaps we're also doing it because it's a good thing to do. So it's not only because we want to conform and we want to be peer pressure and fit in, but maybe because if it's a good idea, we do it anyhow.
One person's conformity is another person's, are you doing the same as everybody else?
Okay, fair enough.
I want to be an individual. I'm not going to do L'Chadodi on a Friday night. Whereby that now wouldn't make sense. You'd be going against tradition, but that tradition was only 400 years old.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely. So we're saying that on the one hand, we do follow along, and it's quite common for people to do what everyone else is doing. But at the same time, there is an element where a person wants to stand out. Doesn't want to just be another statistic or another number like everybody else. People do like to be unique. It's a very interesting balance to think about what it is that makes us feel happy when we're different, and what it is that makes us feel unhappy or uncomfortable when we're different. So perhaps the idea is, as long as we're accepted, we want to be unique. We don't want to be unique in a way that we're not accepted. But today we're going to speak about something which is similar along the same lines, but it's not quite exactly this about how we feel about certain things. We're going to talk about it more from the Torah perspective. What does the Torah say is the ideal? Does the Torah suggest it's ideal that everybody does exactly the same thing and nobody's any different? Nobody has anything unique? Or does the Torah say, no, everybody is different. Everybody was created uniquely. Well, as we've said many a time, the Eivusha, Hashem did not create 7 billion people copy, paste on automation. Not at all. That would be redundancy. And equality cannot mean that everybody is the same. Equality can't mean that, because if that's what it means, it basically says that I'm worthless because I'm the same as everybody else. And Yiddishkeit strongly teaches that nobody can replace you. Yes, it's true, the world can survive without me. And if I'm not around, then the world will do other things. But the mission that I have is unique to me. And the same is true with everybody else. Everything that you can do is unique to you. There are certain things you can do, others can do, but you have a gift to bring to the world that no one else can do. And the proof is that Hashem made you. Are we making sense? So now, if that's the case, we want to ask ourselves, so how does the Torah teach us the balance? Now, the way the Torah is going to talk about it, it's not just so much about how it feels. Does it feel good or does it not feel good? Is it your right to feel this way? Is it your right to feel that way? Because in general, the Torah doesn't talk about rights and measure by feelings. Because the Torah measures by what's needed, what's necessary. What is our responsibility? What are we born to do? And then the same question arises. Were we born to be unique? And that's how we fulfill our mission? Or are we supposed to conform and do whatever it is that everyone else is doing, be the same? And the answer is both are correct, and it's a balance. It's a balance between fitting in and being part of everybody else, which we're going to call humility. And then we're going to have on the other side self-importance, where a person thinks to himself, am I special? Is there anything about me that I have that is just so much better than everyone else has? And then you hit yourself and say, what? Am I so arrogant to start thinking about myself? And it tends to be, I think this is like all sorts of research that they do, most normal thinking human beings go through this sort of dilemma in a bigger or smaller way, but not so quite often. Well, we ask ourselves, maybe I'm just so much better than everyone else in this area. And then somewhere in the back of your mind, depending on how much we do or don't care about this, we challenge ourselves, is it even okay to think about ourselves as better than everyone else? Isn't this arrogant? And the balance...
That'd be wrong.
Sorry, go ahead.
That would be wrong to think that we're better than anybody else.
Oh, is it? Is it not okay to think that you're better than everyone else? In certain areas, not in everything, but in one area?
Well, in any area, as an individual, you're going to show that you're a decent sort of person. If you think you're better than anybody else and looking down on people, that sets a very bad example.
Wow, I hear where you're coming from.
Levy, I thought we were chosen.
Yes, absolutely. We certainly are. We certainly are the chosen people. Very good. Good example. So 1 second. Let's say the top neurologist, who maybe even a surgeon who's doing all sorts of the most complicated and very, very I don't know the words are, but you have to be very, very skilled to be able to do these kind of things. Should such a surgeon think that they are not better than everyone else when it comes to surgery?
No, they're probably very humble.
But they know they're better than everyone else. They better know that, and they better realize that, because otherwise they won't be doing what they're supposed to be doing. They won't be saving the lives they're supposed to save. Anyone can do this. No, not everyone can do this. You better not give this knife over to somebody else.
No, I agree with you, but they're not boasting about it.
Oh, so they should know about it, but they shouldn't tell anybody.
No, not they shouldn't tell anybody. People know that they're surgeons and they're very, very good.
Yeah.
But, they're not sort of saying, well, I'm above everybody.
Okay. We're going to need to add some more words to explain. Go on, Neville.
I think it's very hard for people that are exceptional to be humble.
Yes, 100%. And not only that, it's an excuse. You can understand where they're coming from.
It's human nature. It's human nature. If they're that good, a consultant, a doctor, a professor, a rabbi, if they're exceptional, it's human nature not to go to your head. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to. If you're brilliant, you're going to find it difficult conversing with somebody significantly less brilliant, unless you're even more exceptional, unless you're one-off. Very difficult.
And then maybe the guy's going to start thinking that he's so exceptional in humility. Catch 22. But 1 second, I think we have a valid point. We want to explore not so much what it feels right, but also what the Torah tells us about this element. And in a sense, this week's Parshah has a great message to it. Now, it doesn't only work for people who are exceptional. The message is true and works for everybody at every level and wherever we're up to. But it's a great message to walk away with, especially as we're going into areas where there is tension. I can say that in most places, when it comes to crunch era, when it comes to a time where there are things that have to get done with a certain deadline, so then it becomes more important to keep the measure, the tool, the measuring tool clear. When is it right and when is it not right? Let's say something has to get done. It's a shul event, preparing for Pesach. It's a home event. How we're going to do this, that, and the other. It's a family event. And I happen to know that I have the expertise to be able to bring an answer to the table that others don't have. How can I present it? How can I carry myself with keeping my self-importance or the things, the expertise that I have front and at the top so that it doesn't go amiss. We don't lose out because of my humility, but at the same time also still be humble. Humble
got to be
meaning that
tactful.
people don't get offended. Humble meaning that I don't toot my own horn and think that I'm better than everyone else. And this could be something that could make a world of a difference between a family faribble or a uplifting opportunity. And it's not only family, the same things when it comes to talking to colleagues and boss and whatever at work or students or whatever else it is. If we have the ability to present ourselves with humility, but still not undersell our expertise, sell ourselves short, then we're able to walk this fine line and good things can happen. Now, of course, take it to the extreme. You're talking about people who are excel in, and they're like uber good. But the same sort of measure and the same sort of tool could be useful and is very useful at every level along the way. So this is what we're hoping to learn from this week's Parshah, Parshas Vayikra. How are we doing? Malcolm, did you want to say something?
Well, it's the case, and everybody is going to be doing things at their own level.
Yeah, very much so. And that's a good starting point to understand that people are on different levels and different people are up to different places. Here we're talking about specifically in the area where we have to walk a fine balance between humility and self-importance. Self-importance here meaning that you really have something to show for yourself that's not just made up in your head. You're in the crowd, but you're standing out.
Man.
Okay, so here it goes. The starting point we have in this week's Parshah is the very first opening words of the third book of the whole Torah. We had Chazak, last Shabbos is gone, and now we start the third book, Parshas Vayikra. The opening words are Vayikra el Moshe, Vayidaber Hashem elav el Moed Lamer. And he called to Moshe, and God spoke to him from the tent of meeting, saying, now look at the screen. You might notice, if you have the screen on, the very first word is Vayikra. And that's why it's the name of the book. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 letters. And of course, I'm pointing at the last of those 5 letters is an Aleph. And the Aleph is written small. Small Aleph. It's interesting, fascinating actually, that throughout the 24 books of Tanakh, there are 22 letters in the alphabet, plus 5 end of letters for the end of a word, like the mem, the nun, the chaf, the pei, and the tzaddik, where they have a different form. But each one of the letters are generally written on a same font size, I should say. Yet there are certain places, quite a few of them, sprinkled all around Tanakh, where some of the letters will be written in smaller font. Sometimes they're written in extra large font. And amazingly, the Kabbalists point out that throughout Tanakh, every single letter is found at least once large and once small. Amazing. Well, the Aleph in small is right here. Vayikra. El Moshe has a small Aleph. It's not a typo. It's not a mistake in the script. The Sefer learns that when he writes the word Vayikra in the Torah, he has to write a small Aleph. If I'm
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask
Go
a
ahead,
question?
Jeff.
What we're seeing here is what we would normally read in the Chumash, but that is not what we see in this Sefer Torah, because we don't have the vowels in it.
Oh.
So the question is this.
That's clever.
The fact is that you made a comment about the small Aleph. Fine, that's great. So why don't we have right through our learnings as a child learn without any vowels? Therefore, it would help people become more conversant with laning as well, because when you're laying, you don't have the vowels.
Very good. Good point. I think the answer to why we don't learn to read without vowels is because at the beginning, it's much harder to read without vowels. So we almost make it easy for the beginning, but eventually we want to come to a place where we can read without vowels. I just want to tell you in yeshiva lingo, it's so important to learn without vowels because the Gemara is written without vowels. Only recently, in the past, even the art scroll Shas, when you look at the Gemara in the art scroll, it has no vowels. They then put it in the English with the Hebrew into line. So there they do have vowels. But in the actual text, on the other side, there is no vowels. So learning to read without vowels is quite important. Equally in the Chumash, if you look at your Rashi, in most Chumashim, I think recently they've just released a couple in the past 20 years. They've released some that have vowels. Generally speaking, Rashi has no vowels, which means that a person, that students expected at a certain point, once you start advancing, to start picking up how to read without vowels. What's fascinating is that's not only an art of reading without vowels, there are certain words that have the same letters, but different vowels make different words. And you've got to guess which one's the right one. And you read it one time, and if it doesn't make sense, what you basically do is read it again, try it differently. And it's almost like by way of elimination, trial and error, where you try and figure out what is actually written here. But it's a slightly more advanced way of studying. And ideally, we start off with working our way up. We start off with the easy and we work towards the harder. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it opens up a can of worms.
Go on.
Because at the end of the day, is we can interpret things and we can say, right, okay, I know there's two answers to this one, so I'll take the better answer.
Oh,
It really, just looking at the letters on its own, without it does, unfortunately. So therefore,
here is what you've just said in different words, the way Chazal tell us. If I can rephrase what you said, the sages tell us that the proof that we need to have the Torah Sheba'al Peh, the spoken Torah, the oral Torah, and not just the written Torah, is because there's no vowels. That's one of the biggest proofs. For example, the Torah tells us, don't eat milk. Don't cook the meat of the goat of the kid in its mother's milk. Now the word chalav is ches lamed veis, but that's when you've got the vowels that say chalav. The same word, if you word the word chelev, doesn't mean milk, it means fat. And it makes sense. Don't cook the meat in the fat of its mother. It happens to be that chelev is the kind of fat that's forbidden. So it would make sense that if you cook the meat in that fat, then it's forbidden. But cook it in milk, perhaps it's perfectly okay. So who decided that milk and meat is forbidden? And the answer is that the Torah that we have is the written form of Torah. And the written form of Torah is second in historical order. We first had a spoken law, and we then had the written law. First came the Shir. Moshe Rabbeinu heard from Hashem. The Jewish people heard the Ten Commandments from Hashem and then got it in written form. So they knew what was said before they read it inside. And the same is true with the entire Torah. The Torah was only given to us at the end of the 40-year journey in the desert before Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. What were they doing for those 40 years? 40 years. They studied Torah. And they learned the Torah. And they knew the Torah. And then Hashem told Moshe to write it down and dictated it word for word. So which came first? The milk or the pasuk? Did we know that it's forbidden to cook milk and meat and then find it in the pasuk? Or did we learn the pasuk and then decide what it's supposed to mean? So important to realize that the spoken law isn't made up. It's tradition. It's passed down from generation to generation. And reading the Torah is exactly that. The truth is, any language that we read requires a spoken law. How do I know how to pronounce the word pronounce? Prounce. How do you know how to, I didn't even spell it right. How do you know how to pronounce that word? And the answer is because we are taught orally how to pronounce and how to read words. So even spoken tradition relies on a very strong level of teacher to student, oral tradition. And that's very true when it comes to Torah for very good reason. But this is the kind of worms that you're referring to. That absolutely, for someone to say, I'll read the Torah on my own and come to my own interpretations, doesn't stand a chance of getting it right. You don't stand a chance of getting it right unless we hold on to the chain that goes back till Har Sinai. Even Moshe Rabbeinu had to rely on tradition because he had to hear it from Hashem. He couldn't make it up himself. So that's the idea, that even in the letters of the Torah, where there's a big letter and a small letter, and instead of having the regular letter, that is part of the message. And of course, to the average student, you just read it Vayikra, and you say to yourself, there must be a reason, but it's not in the basic understanding. And then when we're ready, we go back and revisit these little clues the Torah wrote into this dynamic book, this godly book, divine book, never mind dynamic, a divine book, the word of Hashem that has layers upon layers of teachings that we can unpack so long as we're following the guidelines that the Torah tells us are the rules of the game. Oh, I think one of the good analogies that we have to that is the game called, I always struggle to pronounce it, I think it's Sudoku or whatever Sudoku it's called. Sudoku? Sudoku? No, something like that. But that game, there are rules of how you play it. And when you play by the rules, then you find the numbers that the designer of the sheet had in mind when they wrote it in. But if you play by your own rules, you can start putting numbers in, and there's a good chance we won't get the right numbers. So this is the same sort of idea. Unpacking the Torah is a full-on service. And that's why the Talmidei Chacham, the sages, spend so much time grappling with it backwards and forwards, and it's a mitzvah to study Torah. But this is the idea. We're looking today at the small Aleph in Vayikra. Before we go to the next slide, I'm asking you, what would you suggest is a reason or a message in the small Aleph of this week's Parshah? Please help me out. We're not clicking the next slide until we hear at least one suggestion. That's not a threat.
I was going to ask you. I was trying to remember and I can't.
What would you say a small Aleph has to say based on the conversation we started off with today? Humility versus self-importance. Here we have Hashem talking to Moshe.
Maybe
That's the one. So it's not. It's kind of bringing it down, and it's making Vayikra the strong.
Okay, it's an emphasis on Vayikra. Yoina, you're going to say something?
I was just going to say that the leader should be humble. Maybe that's the meaning. The one who comes first.
This is the opening when Hashem is speaking to Moshe, the 10th meeting, and Yoina suggesting Vayikra el Moshe, small Aleph. You are the leader. Yes, Moshe Rabbeinu, you're about to teach everybody exactly how to get connected. You're going to show them how it's done. Vayikra, small Aleph. Keep it humble. Along the same lines, most basic commentators say very much similar, but not that he should have been humble, but it was a testament that he was humble. And how do we know that? Well, so you see, here's the Shrei Hamar, who's quoted as many others say the same thing. Sorry?
It says the pasuk Moshe Anav Meod.
Mikol Adam, Ashal Pnei Adam. Let's read it inside. Perhaps the reason for the small Aleph is in line with what I wrote previously, namely that out of his great humility, Moshe distanced himself from any sort of prestige. Case in point, he fled from the stage so much that God had to call out to him. Vayikra. Vayikra means and he called. Why does he have to call him? Shouldn't Moshe Rabbeinu be ready there? Moshe Rabbeinu was hiding from the limelight. Hashem called him and says, no, step up. We need you to be on stage. You need to be holding the mic and everybody has to be looking up to you. You have to be on a pedestal. I know you don't like this, but this is what you need. That's the Aleph of the word Vayikra, and he's called is small. Interesting.
In other words, Moshe was shy.
It's interesting you say he was shy.
Yeah, shy
there are some stories in the Torah that seem to indicate that he wasn't shy.
Yes, I know,
classic
but
examples
it's
of the Torah story.
conflicting. Yeah.
Sorry?
It's conflicting.
So I think the answer is that he wasn't shy, he was humble. And
Right.
humility doesn't mean to be shy. And in a sense, it's very much what we're going to talk about today. When Moshe Rabbeinu turns around to Hashem and he's speaking to him at the burning bush and he says to Hashem, who am I to go and save the Jewish people? He was not afraid to speak up to Hashem. Jeff was talking before about speaking up to your manager, to your boss. Moshe Rabbeinu was unafraid. He wasn't shy. And when he spoke to Hashem, he was honest, 100% honest. He wasn't shy. But he said, I don't feel worthy. Go on, Neville.
But also, it depends on his time scale and his age, because obviously when he originally was speaking to God, he said, I haven't got the words to be a leader, yeah? And will be your words. So obviously, experience meant that he could talk more directly to God later on.
We're going to learn today a different angle. We're going to learn today that it wasn't only experience, it was humility. And Moshe Rabbeinu started with humility, and he lived with humility all the way throughout. And that's why he said, I don't have words, but that's the same exact reason why he continued to live and yes, use words, because his humility helped him realize that the words he was going to use were not his own. In other words, he accepted that he himself is worthless. But as a representative of Hashem, he has everything that it takes to get the job done, because it's not his words. So humility doesn't mean that I measure myself against everybody else and consider myself a doormat, a schlepper, a schmatter. That's not humility. We're going to learn that that's not okay. It's not Jewish. It's not ideal. What is ideal is to say that everything that I have is only Hashem's. And that the words that I have for myself are not great. But if Hashem wants me to do something, then I have everything it takes to get the job done, including finding words that I didn't have. And this is humility. And this is what Moshe Rabbeinu's position was. So we could look at it as experience and lack of experience and gaining experience. But Chassidus is going to tell us it's missing the point, or the bigger point. Much more important than that is the ability to recognize that everything that I have isn't enough unless it's what Hashem is giving to me. Unless I'm doing and working with a gift and recognizing that it's the gift from Hashem. But here, that was the answer. Let's build a question again. And the question is going to be, Moshe Rabbeinu is Mr. Humble, and that's the small Aleph. Now, the point is that Moshe's humility being taught to us by a small Aleph sounds fantastical. It's a great lesson. Moshe Rabbeinu was very humble. It teaches us how we should lead, and humility is very important. There's we're going to do what was supposed to take a half an hour. We're going to do it in 3 minutes, okay? But the idea is that there's another pasuk in Chronicles, in Divrei HaYamim, that talks about another person with a big Aleph. And here is Adam, Sheis, and Enosh. And in Divrei HaYamim, Adam is written with a large Aleph. And of course, the question is, if Adam is written with a large Aleph, so if the small Aleph means humility, what does a large Aleph teach us?
Leadership.
The opposite of humility is leadership?
Yeah.
Maybe. Usually to most people, the opposite of humility is arrogance. Are we teaching us that we need to have arrogance? So the answer is going to be no, not quite. We're not learning to have arrogance. There's a beautiful story about the Alter Rebbe and his grandson, the Tzemach Tzedek, where the young little boy asked him the question, why is there a small Aleph? And his grandfather's, his mother had passed away, who was the daughter of the Alter Rebbe, and therefore the grandfather had a lot of time for his young grandchild. He literally educated his grandchild personally. He oversaw his full education. It's a beautiful story. But the Tzemach Tzedek, as a young boy, asked his grandfather, why is there a small Aleph? And the answer his grandfather gave to him was that the Aleph of Moshe is small and it teaches a lesson. But before he tells him that, in the story, he says to his grandson, before he tells him, answers the question, he says, I want to tell you there's a different Aleph. And he mentions a large Aleph that we just pointed out. And he says there's a large Aleph for Adam. Because Adam knew that he was the creation of Hashem. He wasn't born to parents. He was made. And therefore he recognized that he was Yitzir Kapov, the handiwork of Hashem himself. And the problem was that it got to his head. And when it got to his head, he was willing to do things, whatever he felt like, including doing things that were wrong. And that's how he ended up eating from the tree of knowledge, and it was the tremendous sin. Moshe Rabbeinu, on the other hand, had a small aleph, and he was humble. And he is humble, and that's what teaches us to have a small aleph, to have humility. So this is the story. This kid asked the question. Grandfather introduces the answer by mentioning the big aleph in Adam, and then tells him that it teaches us humility. Now here comes Hasidic analytics. We look at a story that took place with a Rebbe, and we go to town with it. What's the message of a large aleph as an introduction to the message of the small aleph? In simple English, why did grandfather have to involve a disparaging story of Adam? The kid had no idea that Adam might have made a mistake and that there was a large aleph and it got to his head. Why did grandfather have to try and talk down about Adam? He asked him a question about Moshe Rabbeinu. Answer about Moshe Rabbeinu. Tell him that Moshe Rabbeinu is very humble. Why is the story not only told that way, but recorded and taught this way to us? And here, the message is not only from Moshe. Before we're ready to learn the message about humility, there must be an introduction of a large aleph. This is the answer. We have 1.5 minutes left to go. I'm going to say it very briefly. Reb Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the author of the Tanya, understood human nature. And he understood that if we teach ourselves and our children humility, first, what human nature is, we end up getting a warped idea of humility. It goes something along the lines, I'm a schlepper. I'm worthless. And that is not humility. And he says to his grandchild, as a young kid, I'm sorry, I would like to answer your question, but first I have to tell you the introduction and foundation. And before I tell you that, I cannot tell you the answer to the Aleph. But I'll tell you the introduction and I'll tell you the answer. What's the introduction? The introduction is that Adam was the first human being. And the first human being, it was clear as day that they are so important, so relevant, so enormously important, they are the handiwork of Hashem. And that is the first Aleph. Now that I've told you that that's what a human being is a being that is so important, so relevant, the creation of Hashem. Now I can tell you about the small Aleph. There's a small Aleph because the knowledge that is foundational, that every person is important, is unique, has so much to give, has a mission that nobody else can fulfill. And that's what a human being is. That runs the risk of getting to someone's head. And that could become an Aleph that can go wrong. And in order to answer this little problem, there's a small Aleph that teaches us that we should have humility. But the first thing is that you have to know that a human being is an Adam. The Mishnah tells us, why was Adam created as a single human being rather than created as two humans? So that nobody should ever think that humans are dispensable. Every single human being is unique. And although you look like you don't have what to give because your friends, your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, your this, your that, makes you feel like you don't have, Hashem woke me up this morning. Now I have to remember humility. What is humility? And Moshe Rabbeinu teaches us, not that I can't do things, but I know that everything I have is a gift from Hashem. And the gift that Hashem gave me, my skill set, my circumstances, my knowledge, whatever else it is, isn't a gift to me, for me. It was a gift to me for my mission. Do that again. The gift of the skill set that I have was a gift to me, but not for me. The gift to me was a gift to me for my mission. So different. Such a beautiful measure. Now let's go back to the case where I'm not sure how to present my experience, my expertise to people without offending anybody. This is the measure stick. Remind myself that the fact that I have this experience or this expertise or whatever else it is that I can share is not a gift to me for me, but it's a gift to me for my mission. And therefore, when I share it, it's not going to be self-aggrandizing. It's not about arrogance. It's about being able to live up to the mission I can do. And when I have this measure, my approach is different. My judgment is different. And 9 times out of 10, it will be accepted in that way differently. So what we learned today is that the foundation is the large Aleph. That comes first. Don't ever undersell yourself. At the same time, we have a small Aleph to teach us that even Moshe, who was sure that he had skills and experience and expertise that nobody else had, managed to be humble. How so? Because he reminded himself that humility is not a shmata, a schlepper, a doormat. Humility means that I recognize that the gift is from Hashem. Not to me, for me, but to me for my mission. This is what we're learning from Parshas Vayikra. I think it's a very useful, very workable, relevant, practical lesson. Hashem should give us the courage to be able to never sell ourselves short, but also realize our position in the expertise that we have. It's our mission, it's not us. Have we learned something today?
Yes.
Hashem should give us a good week, a good month, a good chodesh, good news.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for joining. We'll do a quick Birchas Kohanim, and we'll wish everyone a good week, a good chodesh. Thank you, bench, everybody. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
David. Thank
Very
you.
much enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Any questions before we go?
I have a remark.
Please.
I think throughout all my life, I was having this thought on a very, maybe on a bird's eye view of any religion, not just Judaism. You can say, okay, this is just a way to, it's not, I don't want to sound very offending, but it may look like it is a way to mediocrity. If you're too good and you stand out too much, don't stand out too much. Be humble. Stay small. Stay like everybody else so you don't stick out. If you're too small and you are not the same height with everybody, don't worry, you're also necessary. You will grow up a little bit. You're a valued member of the community. And somehow you need to, I don't know, I'm listening to you and learning, and it feels that you need to come out of this framework or this perspective. But it is very easy to fall into this. And sometimes when you think about arrogance, it's just Albert Einstein, I'm sure he was arrogant. Richard Feynman, another famous American physicist, he was super arrogant. A lot of Russian famous mathematicians, you can't believe how arrogant they are. But, and sometimes I think, okay, it is very important to recognize who you are, what you do in this world, what you has been given, and what you need to do with this gift, so to say, with your talent. But on the other hand, you should not think mediocrity. You should never think, okay, I'm too great at this, I'm too great at mathematics, but I should lower myself. No way. If you lower yourself, hasta la vista, baby. That's it. You will never make any breakthroughs in your field. It's finished.
What's the problem if you don't make breakthroughs?
If you don't make breakthroughs, you don't use up your talent to the fullest.
What's wrong with that?
You don't use the gift that was given to you.
So what's the problem?
So you're not able to complete
You
the
just
mission.
don't realize your potential. Have to realize. Exactly. So there must be a healthy dose of arrogance. This is what I'm saying. You just need to.
I think the answer to the question,
wait
what's the problem?
yourself.
The answer to the question, what's the problem if a person doesn't fulfill their abilities, is key. The real problem is that if Hashem gave me talents, he's waiting for me to fulfill that potential. So if I don't fulfill that potential, if I say, you know what, I want to be mediocre, it's not that I've let myself down, I've let my mission down. So now, if that's the driving motive for why I should live up to my abilities, that's not arrogance. It doesn't produce arrogance. It doesn't lead to arrogance. Moshe Rabbeinu was able to be humble. How? How was Moshe Rabbeinu able to be humble? You know, the Pasuk Asher mentioned earlier says that he was humble in front of every other human being that was in the walk to play the earth. Let me tell you, there were some nasty people around, gangsters, people who cared about nobody else. How was he humble in front of them? How? What is he, delusional? He lived in denial? What's the answer? How was Moshe Rabbeinu? The Torah says it must be true.
He could just do this, and these guys would disappear.
And so why was he humble in front of them?
He knew that he's stronger.
No. You know what the answer is? Listen to the answer. I'm telling you, I was blown away. The Alter Rebbe asked this question. Something's not right. To be humble in front of fellow human beings, good human beings, people who live up to, what they can do. Fine. I get it. They're doing their bit. But somebody who's a gangster, who's a robber, someone who cares about nothing, someone who's a schlepper, someone who's a couch potato and does nothing all day and just, parasite. How can you be humble in front of them? You know what he said?
Okay, I have an idea.
Go ahead. What's your idea?
If you're not,
what Alter Rebbe says.
If you're not humble to them, it's much less likely that your message will get home. So reaching to them through arrogance would not work because they are built from arrogance. This is how they operate. So if you want to reach out and be heard, you have to work through humility.
Interesting, very interesting point. But here's my question to you, Yana. Are you suggesting that a person should talk humble, but in your mind, it's just a show? Because really, I know where I'm up to. They're a bunch of losers, and I'm doing what I need to do. But I have to speak humble. So really, I'm not really humble, but I'm making as if I'm humble.
I don't think you just speak humble. I think you as a lecturer, let's put it this way, as a teacher, you know that as a teacher, despite you might know 10 times more than all of us do, you have to speak, not really speak from the same level with us. You should lower yourself and speak from that level. And then we will listen to you and we will have a lot of respect to you. Even if you speak from the same level, at the same level with us, we will feel it, and it will not have the same effect.
I hear a lecture we just spoke about recently. 1 second. I want to suggest the Alter Rebbe's approach. The Alter Rebbe's approach is a little bit more advanced, in which he says that if Moshe Rabbeinu is humble, it's not just that he lowers himself to be humble. Moshe Rabbeinu actually believes that this is the real truth. So what's the key? It's just mind-blowing. He says, Moshe Rabbeinu makes this type of calculation. How come I'm so good? How come I can talk to God? How is it that I go up the mountain and Hashem speaks to me face to face and I bring the Torah down to the people? How did that happen? How come Joe Schmo didn't do that? How come it wasn't somebody else? And he says the answer is, this is Moshe Rabbeinu's honest, deepest calculation in front of the mirror and there's nobody else around. He says, you know what? God decided that he's going to make me into the leader. He gave me this. He gave me this soul that I have. He gave me the parents that I have, the circumstances. He groomed me for this. And then he made me into this. Now he has put in so much resources into making me into this conduit to be the leader. That's why I'm able to do it. Says Moshe Rabbeinu. This is like the mind-blowing part. If God would have groomed and prepared that gangster who sits on the couch and steals money from everyone else and does nothing productive, had that person be groomed, there's all the likelihood, had they been given the chances that I was given, they would have used the potential that I have so much more. Amazing. And he's not just making it up. He is 100% convinced, am I using the resources, the gift that I was given to its fullest This is Moshe Rabbeinu's, not just what he says and how he shows himself. This is what Moshe Rabbeinu actually believes. That's humility. Humility meaning that I have this tremendous skill set, and what am I going to do with it? How am I going to put it into practice? Because if I have this skill set, I've got to live up to the mission that was given to. The gift wasn't given to me for me. The gift was given for the mission. Am I letting down that mission with all this gift? And this is Moshe Rabbeinu's honest humility, not dishonest humility, not just a frame. That is so powerful. It's so powerful. Anybody can make the calculation. And when we make that calculation, arrogance is the last thing it's going to produce. And along with that, less work? No way. It's going to make us be driven more than any other drive. The drive that arrogance brings is limited to how much respect I'm going to get from working hard. If I think I'm going to work hard for a breakthrough and no one's going to appreciate it, if the whole motive is to be able to get fame, well, if it's not going to bring me fame, I'm not going to work on the breakthrough. So the breakthroughs that I'm working towards are limited by the amount of fame I will get or money I'm going to get. But if a person's not driven by fame or money, a person's driven by living up to the mission, there's no end to how much breakthrough I have to push towards. As long as I have koyach, as long as I have energy, I'm a painter. Go and make a more beautiful, innovative painting to inspire people. You might not make money on it. So what? This is what you were born to do. This is your calling. And if you're not a painter, instead you're a musician, or instead you're a mathematician, or something else, this is the gift. Go, make it happen. Arrogance? What are you, crazy? It's not for me. It's Hashem's mission. And we can live every day by that. It's so enlightening, freeing. That everything that we do, it's not measured by how much respect I got out of it. It's not measured by how much money it made me. It's measured by whether I'm living up to my mission or not. And nothing changes. Whatever circumstance I'm in, making the most of that circumstance is how I'm going to be able to live up to my mission in the here and now. And unfortunately, sometimes Hashem throws at us hard ones, challenging circumstances. So what? It doesn't stop us from living up to our mission. Instead, it changes what the mission is right now. But the same skill set that I have is being applied to the mission, not towards furthering me. So powerful, so revolutionary. And what's most amazing is there's no delusion in it. There's no make-believe. Humility is real. It is really honest. It's not measuring my success against someone else's success. It's measuring me against me. Am I using up my potential X or am I using up potential more? So powerful, so wonderful. We learned something, but don't forget the introduction. The Alter Rebbe's introduction to this idea is the number one, first remind yourself, learn Adam. Don't learn Moshe first. First learn Adam. Tzemach Tzedek, you don't know about Adam. You never learned the Pasuk in Chronicles, which is in Nach. You haven't got there yet. But I'm going to tell you now. First, remember, you are a genius. You are sky high. And then let's learn Moshe Rabbeinu small Aleph. It's important. But not before you've learned the other thing. Hashem Creator, who woke you up this morning, He has every confidence in you. Because of you and your mission. Have we learned something?
Yes, thank you very much.
Alrighty, Asher, speak a bench. Hatzlacha Rabbe. Kol tov.
Amen. תזכה למצוות.